Yeah.
And a lot of the guys in there were abused by their father.
Mm.
It's a massive release for them to reach out to their father, who might have been alcoholic or whatever, and just say, I forgive you.
Welcome to Share.care, an all-inclusive community sharing experience, strength, and hope to create strong, healthy, and inspiring relationships. Share.care communities work toward every individual feeling safe, valued, and heard, free from the threat of danger, pain, or harm. Each episode, founder Damian Andrews explores the principles underpinning Share.care and invites expert special guests to share their knowledge so you can easily reap the benefits so many others experience. You hold the choice to create your future. Let it be with strong, healthy, and inspiring relationships.
Hello and welcome to the Share.care podcast. Our belief is that global peace starts at home. Feeling safe, valued, and heard gives you a foundation to confidently step out and make the world a happier and safer place for everyone. Because in today's world, it's in your own interest to help others. And today it is my great pleasure to have back on the show the wonderful, the amazing, the awesome Paul Wrightson. He is the founder of Live Fully Now, The Complete Man, and Yoga Everywhere. Now, he guides and supports men and women to break down barriers and past beliefs, to connect them to their true self, to live their ultimate life. Now, Paul has helped over 400 men to live life with purpose and pleasure. And we're going to go deep today in the Complete Man program. We're going to get a bit broader on that. But Paul, welcome. Great to have you back on the show. It's always a pleasure talking with you.
Excellent, Damien. Yeah, thanks for another fantastic introduction. Glad to be back.
Oh, you make it easy, Paul. You're doing all the great work. You're doing, you've got this amazing website. You're doing amazing work with people, connecting them with them. Do you want to take us back? Let's jump in the Wayback Machine, and you'll probably remember this, and I know the audience does. Is there was a silver car? Doc Brown invented it. When you hit 88 miles an hour, you could travel through time. Do you want to jump in that? Hit 88 miles an hour. Let's go back to where did the Complete Man come from? What was the inspiration? What drove you to do that?
Yeah, jumping back in that now. So yeah, thanks for that. That's awesome. For me, when I guess back in the day when I was I was getting the same results over and over again. I was in a job that I wasn't connected to. I was in a relationship that I wasn't really connected to, or definitely wasn't connected to. So I knew there was something extra out there. And then when I started on my personal journey, I had this phrase that I want to be the conscious man. I want to be conscious. I want to be aware of who I am, aware of others, and that's how it sort of evolved. I changed the wording through, coaching or getting coached myself, but then also coaching other men. And then the word conscious didn't really connect to the overall picture, and that's where I came up with the complete, because I believe that we can be complete, or we can work towards feeling and being complete. So that's how it all evolved.
So when you're talking about being complete, because you said you're in a relationship that you didn't like, you're in a job that you didn't like, and there's two key components of most people's lives that we have, where we're either in a relationship and we need to earn money. And then obviously too, we've got the component of yourself, having a relationship with yourself. Are they three pillars? When I look at the different modules you've got, they seem to encapsulate that. Is there more to it, or is there other things, elements to that?
A significant part to it is the relationship with yourself. So module 1 is all around that self-love, that forgiveness from the past, and like taking ownership of the past and learning from those to move forward. I mean, my journey and clients of mine, there's absolutely no way that you can move forward with ease until you actually take a good hard look at yourself for where the things that have happened up until now. I mean, it's historically speaking, men are really good to put their head in the sand, just pretend things don't happen or haven't happened. and then
We can
just,
do it.
it's like go. Yeah, that's right, and go through life where, almost like with blindfolds on, or and that's the sad thing about it. So, but there, there is or are ways to overcome that.
And it's interesting that you mentioned about forgiveness. I mean, how much of that is holding people back, dragging? I mean, I've heard it talked about that, like having these issues, and it's like having this big bag of boulders that you're carrying around on your back. Um, how important is it to understand this forgiveness, and what is that? What do people go through to be able to forgive themselves?
Yeah, it's a huge issue if you don't go through that part of self-acceptance and self-realization. I mean, we're human, we do stuff up, we do make mistakes, and we do it's like if it wouldn't be living if we weren't making mistakes. So but it's what do we do with those mistakes, and those is the important bit. So we've all got a story, we've all got a past, and it's like it's accepting the past, that the crap did happen, or the mistakes, or the hardship, or whatever else that it did happen, but it's changing that story into a positive of looking at why it happened, what was happening for me at the time, what are the major learnings if it ever happens again, and hopefully some of these things may or may not pop up, but if they do, how do I do things differently, and and accepting that we were doing the best that we could have done with our knowledge at the time. So, I mean, once you take all that into consideration and then changing the story around that and learning from it and moving forward, it's just a huge weight. Like you mentioned, the boulders, like they just come off. It's just such a freeing feeling when you go through that process.
How much of that is perception and reality? We've got this perception that because I love using the internet, and the listeners, you're just gonna have to endure my James Bond fetish here. But it's, you watch a James Bond movie and you got 2 hours, and he walks up and he's very successful with a couple of women that he chats to. He deals with all these problems. These are all admirable qualities to have. And for those that say, might be getting up and down, go, oh, talking to women is not an admirable quality. Well, if the species is going to procreate and then move forward, I think we need to be able to have that ability. My opinion. But when we're talking about perception and reality, and I know this from my own experience, when I was in the army, we had a guy that was, he was always dating these really amazing women. They're beautiful, intelligent, great looking. And we're thinking, what is it? How is he doing this? Because he wasn't that bright either. I mean, he was good looking, but he wasn't bright, in my opinion, again. But when I asked him, and I did ask him, I walked up to him and said, Shane, you're not that bright. I did say that. You're not that bright. How is it that you're dating all these great women? And he didn't get upset about the not bright comment. He just just shunned it. He just turned into this wise sensei, put his arm around my shoulder and said, Damien, what you don't see is I ask a lot. Most say no. You just see the ones that say yes. Now, my perception was, he was just asking women, and they were, but I didn't have a consideration that there was a lot that was saying no. And from that perspective, when we're being hard on ourselves, and when we make a mistake, you mentioned about making a mistake, how much of that is this perception that we should be doing everything perfectly, as opposed to the reality of, sometimes, well, not sometimes, every time you're learning something new, you're going to have beginners suck. You're going to suck at it the first few times you do it, and then that's normal. How much of that not forgiving is having a disjointed, I was going to say, I'll say disjointed, someone can correct me on the English, a misrepresentation of what reality is? Yeah,
mine's a crazy thing, isn't it? I mean, it's you can look at it, I guess, something that's happened in the past as, it's all my fault, I did everything wrong, to someone else's fault, whatever it is. I mean, it's the reality of it. It happened, but I mean, it's taking away the blame, no matter who's blamed for it, whether yourself or someone else. I mean, that's the other freeing part too. Like it's almost stepping out of the situation. So not in the actual event itself.
Yeah.
So going back to the James Bond sort of, like, example, or the guy from the army. I mean, it's if you don't ask, you don't get. But it's also that curiosity, I think you sort of mentioned, and asking those questions, and then coming back to the forgiveness. It's asking, why this? Why did it happen to me?
Yeah.
But coming from a space of not being victim mentality, because that's the other thing we've got to watch out as well. So it's coming from a space of, looking from the outside in, and then why did it happen? Instead of saying poor me, it happened to me, it's more like just taking full responsibility. It did, and the perception there, whatever it might be. I mean, it does play a part in it. I mean, especially if you start listening to other people as well. So that's what we got to be careful of too.
Yeah, is that from that perspective? Because when you're talking about self-love, which is that first module, is that having that perspective of going, hey, I'm a person. I have my experience. You get what you get, when you start out anyway. You can't choose your parents. Sometimes we like to, but you can't. You're stuck with
absolutely.
that. And I mean, to my parents, I look at them and go, yeah, there was some really shitty stuff there, and there was some good stuff. Is it a case of, when you look at that from my perspective, because I look at it and go, well, yeah, there was some shitty stuff there, but there was some good stuff. So I'll focus on that good stuff. They did the best they could that they knew how to. Well, I choose to believe that. These are the good things. I'll take those. These crappy things here, maybe I need to work on that. And that's my responsibility. Is that part of what you're talking about when you're talking about self-love?
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a huge component in there. I've just got the modules up on the screen now. I think it's module 2, but also module 5. But it's all take the whole thing around the complete man. One of the biggest things is relationships with yourself, and also taking full responsibility for emotions and thoughts and actions. So that's where a lot of men fall down, because they stay in, they don't move forward. They stay in victim mode. They blame their parents, or they blame their past, or they blame their partner, or they blame themselves, all this blaming. And part of the complete man is like taking all the excuses, blaming, and complaining out. So there's none of that in the vocabulary. So stepping up to take full responsibility, and that's where the magic happens, because then you're able to, forgive, be more aware of the others around you, be more aware of, our own emotions and feelings. But until we get to that space, I mean, it's the forgiveness is just a huge thing, and it's like it's forgiving. For instance, forgiving your parents. That's the word. It's all that stuff happens.
How do you do that? How does someone forgive their parents? That's a big one for some people, I would imagine. It's like, they wouldn't let me ride a bike, and I can't. It's like, well, go out there and ride a bike now. You can do it.
Yeah, it's a powerful thing. Like, I've been in I think it was about 4 years ago, in a men's group. And one of the things we did was call someone up from our childhood or from school or whatever, maybe not call them up, but just message them to forgive them. Yeah. And a lot of the guys in there were abused by their father. It's a massive release for them to reach out to their father, who might have been alcoholic or whatever, and just say, I forgive you. You were doing the best that you could possibly do at the time. And then, for them, it was just a massive breakdown. I'm getting goosebumps now just thinking about that.
Because, I'm getting it as you're talking about it. It's like,
it's just it's a big release for them, and holding all of that up until now, that blaming their father because the stuff that's happening in their life right now. Once they release that, it's like huge release. So it's critical to not blame someone for where you are right now. But I mean, it's like all this takes practice. It doesn't just happen. Click fingers and and it's done.
Well, that's why the program is what you've got, because it's not, you don't read a book and all of that. I was so guilty of this. I'd read all these books, never implement anything.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Yep, I've done the same.
Yeah. So, and then I picked one book, and it wasn't a book, it was an audio. It was Wayne Dye's How to Be a No Limit Person. Oh, yeah. And I just listened to that over and over and over again, and I still go back to and listen to it.
Yeah, he's got some good stuff. Yeah, absolutely.
From that perspective, though, you talk about not complaining, and Share.care has 10 principles for a strong, healthy, and inspiring relationship. Although it's not in any order, self-responsibility is at the top. How important is that to actually? I mean, and not only how important, but how difficult is it to accept that you're actually the cause of the problems?
Yeah, that's where the awareness comes into it as well.
Yeah.
If you're unaware of, if you're getting the same results over and over again, or you're upsetting someone in a relationship or whatever, we just keep doing it. It's in this cycle of, and then it obviously spirals down. So until we're, actually aware of it, that this is happening, and then there's a big component is that making a decision to actually change.
Yeah.
So what happens with our part of this is in the course. There was studies done by I can't remember the exact name, but for the show notes I can certainly find it. But
I have the Einstein principle. Einstein said, "Never remember anything you can look up because it clogs up your thinking capacity." So that's my excuse.
I love it. Yeah. Well, they did research, and they found that the human brain, especially a male, there's two things. They look at something, there's an issue, and firstly, like in an instant, they'll look at it and go, okay, number one, I don't like that situation, I don't like the outcome. And then they look for ways, they get curious, and they look for ways to actually change.
Yeah.
Or, which most men do, is it's too hard and there's no way I'm going to get any benefit out of it, so I'm just going to keep acting the way I am. So that's at an unconscious level. So we make this decision unconsciously, I'm going to change or not. And then it's, until we've made a decision to change unconsciously and then obviously consciously, that's when the journey can start to change and shift.
Is that, I mean, because a friend of mine, I love her, she has this quote that we learn through pain until we learn to learn through joy. But is it a case where we have to reach a certain level of pain that forces us to wake up and go, hey, I need to do something differently? Do we have to go through that process?
My whole brand is Live Fully Now, and obviously now The Complete Man is around let's not wait for the pain to happen. I mean, a lot of people do hit rock bottom and they decide to change or not. I mean, there's the big four. I think it's divorce, bankruptcy, death, and health.
Yeah,
I think that's the big four that is spoken of a lot. So my whole message and support and guidance that I offer is let's not wait for that to happen. If you're unhappy in a relationship now, either fix it, or if it's not worth fixing, leave. Or if you're in a job you hate, just it's taking the pressure off us as men, and then stepping into something and allowing us to step into a space where it's much more connected.
Is that something too when we look at demographics? Because I look at my dad, for example, and he's one of the boomers, or the tail end of the boomers. And with the demographics that were there at that time, when you look at the workforce, for example, there was an abundance of labor. So employers could choose, and you really had to be, and also too, I mean, when you're coming off parents that went through the Great Depression as well. So there was a scarcity, a very, very strong scarcity mindset that was needed to survive. And then, we get to the boomers that sort of were taught that. And I looked at my dad, who worked in the same organization his entire career, different jobs, but same organization, didn't step out. And it was never a thought to step out. But now we get to today, and we've got not only the demographics have changed, so you actually have a lot more power as someone, to go out, you can start your own business, you can, then there's a lot more education out there to guide you to do that. Is it a case that we haven't actually learnt the skills of how to make those decisions for ourselves? Because you cover that off a bit from what I can read in your course as well, how to make, when you talk about you are the creator, is that about having that choice of going, hey, I can decide what's right for me?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, you're spot on there, Damien. I mean, we are the creator, and we can create whatever we wish to, but it's what happens is that there's so many pressures. We're wearing different hats as well, whether we're the breadwinner in the household, or whether we're looking after the children, or whether we're whatever the hats of a parent, friend, lover, whatever it might be, male and female. It's not just males for this one. So it's like it's a case of, I lost my train of thought, but it's
we're being the creator and choosing what's right for you, and having that confidence to say, hey, I can actually step out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's there's a massive component in the Complete Man about creating values, and it's like getting back to simplifying life and really tapping into what's truly important to you as a man. And not being tied up in that's what I was going with that. So not being tied up in the different hats or society's expectations or the expectations of your partner or whatever else that happens. It's creating and getting and simplifying down and getting back that true identity.
Is that when you're talking about that identity, because you're getting to the core of who you are and how you operate, is that from that side of things? You talked about values there. I mean, is it identifying what those values are? Because I look at that, from my example, my personal example, we have not only, we have family values, honesty, excellence, and understanding. I have a personal mission statement which incorporates that. We even, I've made a barbecue, like one of those big open fire pits, and we actually had it written in Latin, laser cut into it. Honesty, excellence, and understanding.
Yeah, wow.
And I did that, with my son. We worked on it, and we were working on it. And we talked about making a coat of arms, and so he chose the animal, which is the Komodo dragon, to be on the shield, which was really cool. But
Excellent.
Is that and I know from a role modeling perspective, I'm role modeling that for him. But is that where we want to get to for guys that may not? And I didn't have that growing up, but I did it, and we started playing with it and explored it. Identifying what your values are, what are the key things that are important to you? Is that how does someone go through that process if they're haven't done that before?
Yeah, I think it's I didn't have that growing up either. But I guess if I look back without knowing what my parents' values were, but it would be definitely support, love, and family would be the top three for mum and dad. But as a child, I wasn't aware of that at all. But I didn't have it written down. But I mean, to have it written down and on the phone or wherever it might be is pretty important. I mean, there is in one of the lessons in the Complete Man, there is a full lesson on creating values, and it's getting to a point where you can put the hand on the heart and know that each one of those is the top three or the top five, whatever it might be, values that you can look back on and live day to day to those values. Now, they may not always work. I mean, all the actions, but it's just having those in the back of the mind. But to get to that process, I mean, to go through the process and to get that down, it's going through a process of, you might write out, 50 things that are important to you, and then it's grouping them and moving them around to actually get that top, three or whatever it might be.
Yeah. So, and then it's just that process of working it through, and that's something in your course that you work through has helped them find those values.
Absolutely, yeah, it's a huge component because it's they've moved through a process because each module is built on module one. The module two is built off module one, so they can't actually jump straight to the end. So they're going through a process.
It's like maths. So, you have to learn the basics before you can. Exactly.
That's it. Exactly. So then they get to about halfway through, and that's when they're creating values.
Yeah.
So, I do it in a way. There's an online workbook, so they can actually type it in, or they can handwrite it. Another process I've done many years ago is actually wrote them all down on a bit of paper, and then my wife and myself did this. It's quite powerful, and then we just put them all. We're actually away for the weekend, so we created this space in the place we're staying at. We put all the words all around the lounge room. We walked around, physically picked them up, and okay, this is my top 10. Yeah, and then we got it down to 3. So I mean, there's different ways of doing it. Yeah, but it's it's pretty powerful stuff and good fun too.
I love that you're doing it with your wife as well, because you're creating that family connect. Well, you're creating a deeper connection to each other.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, totally.
And
Yeah,
one of the
it's really
things I
great.
think people don't understand is that even if you haven't chose it, you've got them anyway. You
Mm,
inherited them. But is it what you want, and is it what's serving you? Is that the question that people need to be asking? Going, well, okay, I've got them, whether I'm aware of it or not. Well, firstly, what are they?
yeah.
Although I don't think you need to go through what are they, in my personal opinion. But
Mm,
you know, but you certainly, if you want to, you do have them. And
mm,
if you want something different, you need to, if you certainly want something different in your life, you need to do something different, as
yeah,
we referenced Einstein before. You're doing the same
absolutely.
thing again, expecting a different
Yes.
result. Insanity.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
But from that process, is it, again, that recognition, okay, I've got some values. I may not know what they are, but this is what I want. And is that coming to a higher purpose of what you're here for? Why do you get up in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm a big believer of connecting to nature as well. So, when I
Mm,
go through this process about probably every 6 months, really
yeah.
just go through the whole values, creating values again, because I mean, they do change. And what's
Yeah.
important to me now may not have been important 10 years ago. So,
Yeah.
usually I get into nature and really just relax the mind and body, do some
Mm,
deep breathing, and then just start, asking, what right now, what is important in my life, whether it's family, connection, honesty, integrity, um,
mm,
playfulness, fun, whatever it might be.
yeah.
And then just go through the process again, because it's what I've, like you mentioned before, what I guess it's come through from my past
Mm,
may not be as important for me right now
yeah.
where I am.
So
Yeah.
from that perspective, because you do have the module there, the body connection, and there's a lot of talk. I mean, men not really getting in connected with their emotions as well, which is I
Mm,
feel that's part of your body. I mean, the
yeah.
emotion is something you feel. It's not, you don't think an emotion, you feel it. Um, so from that perspective, and what I'm wondering about in the conversations that I'm having is, it seems like men actually have really, really intense feelings, but because we're not taught how to deal with that, it appears to me, I could be wrong, but it appears to me that, you know, because it's this overwhelming experience, we shut it off. So men will
Mm,
have, oh, I've got this, and shut it off. Is part of what that process is, the body connection is part of that, going, okay, these feelings that I'm having, they're okay. That's is
yeah,
part of being a person.
absolutely. Yeah. That's pretty much what module 3, I think, the body connection is all about.
Mm,
So, yeah, going through the process of forgiveness and understanding where things are at now,
mm,
understanding why you're having these different thoughts and feelings and emotions, and actually acknowledging them,
mm,
then looking at ways, or how's that affecting my body? So you've
yeah.
said it, you pretty much nailed it perfectly. So it's like, okay,
I'm a
I've
complete
got
man. No.
that's right. So I'm feeling anger,
Yeah.
whatever it might be. So usually it's in the upper body, or
Mm,
if I'm feeling happy, the whole
yeah.
body lights up. So I go through. There was a study in Finland where
Mm,
they studied humans on the emotions, and not so much how the pain that it for the release it has in the body. More, they did like a heat lamp over the body.
okay.
So yeah, so in you can Google it and find
Mm,
it. Otherwise, it's
I trust you.
in the Complete Man. So they've got this like study like and diagram of
Yeah.
like I said, like joy and happiness. The whole body is like red.
Oh,
But then
wow.
anger and love tend to be, like that around the chest, and they affect the
Oh,
body the same way. So it's either, if I'm angry,
yeah.
my body is like feeling it in the same way from a heat perspective and from an energy point of view than
Wow.
if I change it to love. So it's absolutely fascinating.
Yeah.
And then you've got the concept of, if I've got for instance
Mm,
a sore throat.
yeah.
Normally that means I'm not communicating, or
Oh,
if I've got a sore foot, that means something else. So I get them to go through the entire body scan as
mm,
a full process, and then becoming aware of their body and becoming aware of what the body's feeling, and then just writing it down and then looking at what actually that means for them.
Yeah. And from
Super
that,
powerful.
yeah, because from that you can take that further, as I understand it, it's giving you information. And I like to come from a corporate background, so I'm putting it into corporate sense. And I have a negotiation program that I teach to corporates, and part of that is where you get power from is gathering information. And from that perspective, if you're feeling an emotion, just say you're feeling frustrated or anger, before it gets to anger, let's say you notice you're starting to feel frustrated. That's a feedback, which if you're aware of, going, okay, what's going on in this situation that I'm feeling frustrated about? It's a trigger, as opposed to if you're repressing it, you're not getting that information. Is that what you're encouraging people to learn from?
Absolutely, yeah. So it's like a catch and release process. So it's catching it happens in an instant. So this takes practice. So if something triggers you and then you get frustrated immediately, and then you act, then whether you respond to a certain thing or a certain person or whatever in the same way, it's catching that as like, I'm feeling frustrated now, or what is it that triggered me, and then be able to release it.
Yeah.
And that's when he started to be able to like shift the energy around the body and release it, instead of like just, feeling that frustration in the shoulders and the arms and the neck and the head. So it's takes practice, all of this. So it's not just like, I'll do it once and it's done. It's like it's happens to the best of us, still, but it's just having that awareness and be able to catch it at that moment.
And so it's a skill. What you're saying is a skill that can be learned. So you feel an emotion. One first is recognizing that, hey, you are a person. Yeah, you're a man, but you're a person too. So you have emotions. That's just
absolutely
that is reality.
Yes.
And then from there, because what it seems to me is people talk about and there's said I've heard about it. It's not really been my experience because, as you know, I was in the special forces at the SAS. I was posted there. Those guys were tough.
Yeah.
But they all could recognize their emotions. They all could ask for help. And now I've put a couple of things together where we all were screened before we went there as well. So I'm guessing that was part of what they were looking for, because you can't do that job and just be an island. It doesn't. You cannot do it.
Significant.
Yeah, so that's the toughest of the tough, and I make fun of AFL and the rugby, people going, you think you're tough. But when we're talking about that from a tough perspective, being able to recognize and go, well, certainly from a tough, but also from a power perspective, being able to acknowledge, oh, that's happening. Now I can do something different, or I can do something in a proactive way. That actually acknowledging that, embracing that emotion actually gives you far more power than suppressing it. Is that fair to say?
Very fair to say, yeah. So, part of, I guess, the definition, if you want to define what a complete man is exactly that. It's acknowledging the emotions. It's sharing the emotions if you feel safe enough to share them with someone, and be able to shift from negative state or positive state. I mean, our mind is so powerful, we can switch it immediately. We can change from a negative state or positive straight away if we wish to.
Yeah.
But if something like pretty bad is happening to us at that particular moment, it may be difficult and challenging to do that. But it's still acknowledging and sharing those emotions. I mean, it's now that I've met my current wife now, if nothing more makes us more connected to each other, is when I actually share what I'm thinking, feeling, and mainly thinking and feeling and doing, of course. But I mean, that deep emotion, sharing that, it just like has that huge connection between two people.
Yeah, and that's and this has always fascinated me, because for what you just talked about, that deep connection, and I've covered this for the listeners that have listened to some previous podcasts, but it's guys, that deep connection is what turns her on. So if you want sex,
Totally.
It's have that connection, get in touch with your feelings, be able to, and is it, because I think the stereotype is that why men turn away from that is it's deemed as oh, I'm just being this cryy lose control type thing, but that's not what being in touch with the emotions is about.
No,
I mean,
that's
yes.
right.
I mean, if you've shut it off, and I've gone through this, if you've shut it off for a long time, and then you open up, there's a lot that comes up, and
Mm,
sometimes that can be very powerful. I remember when I was doing singing, I was learning to sing, and singing connects really well to your body.
mm,
And as my singing teacher explained, sometimes you might find that you start crying for no reason, and it
mm,
happened because you connect to that. But when you actually then have fully embraced that, all of a sudden it becomes not something that it has control over you, but you actually work. It's like doing a dance with the emotion, is what I've found. If that's a
mm.
good analogy, is that that's my experience? Is that using that as an analogy?
Yeah, that's a great analogy. I mean, it's yeah, my thoughts went a few different ways there. So we're
Mm.
got a saying. So my wife and myself got a saying that all starts in the kitchen. So so you can't expect us to, not all the time. I mean, it's can't expect us to go to the bedroom and things just happen. I mean,
Mm.
it's if you're already not connected out in the kitchen, the lounge room,
Yeah,
most likely it's not going to happen in the bedroom. So
yeah.
that's one thought. And then also the other thought I went to with that is, if I see example with that emotion singing is like if I'm seeing some live music and then you
Mm.
just feel that rush of emotions and it's like tears or joy or whatever it is that comes up. It's just it's going the dance, as you said, and just riding the waves of emotion and being okay with that and not suppressing them down. Like it's
Mm.
I've seen it in older generations when one person in the relationship starts getting teary and the other one says, "Oh, don't do that, don't show your emotions or whatever." But it's that's past. That's to be a true man. That's a complete man. That's we don't want to suppress emotions. We just want to, like I said,
Mm.
have a dance with them, acknowledge them, and just ride the waves.
Is that part of what you talk about? Because you've got your behaviors matter, and is that where you're looking at going, okay, we need to behave in a way that reflects that? An example that I had of that was, I have a great relationship with my dad now. Didn't
Mm.
always, but do now.
Yep,
And we
excellent.
say, love you and hug each other. We don't see each other all the time. When we do, it's kind of like we haven't been apart. We just move on. It's like and and but I had an experience where I was at it was at a club, and I was there with my dad, and he was there with a couple of people that he did an apprenticeship with. So
Oh
this is
wow.
my dad's 75, so
Yeah.
they're still friends and in the same area. And when we go, normally, we always give each other a hug. And I was going, and I don't know why, for whatever reason, I hadn't thought about it. I just turned and said, "See you," and walked off. And he goes,
Mm.
"Oi!" I went, "What?" And he goes, "Where's my hug?" And so
Excellent.
gone back, give me a hug. But what was interesting was one of those apprenticeship guys said, "Oi, what are you doing? Can't hug." And my dad turned around and said, "He's my son. I can hug him if I want to."
Mm.
And is that, from that perspective now, when we look at that, is it, do you think we've got to a tipping point where that kind of behavior is now becoming more mainstream and as a result, people are more okay to do that?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's COVID obviously stopped everything with that, but it's
Mm.
definitely shifted in a long way, or it's come a long way.
Yeah.
I think it's still, I've still got friends now that if I go in for a hug, they'll, either tap me on the back or
Mm.
pull away and just give me a handshake.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, there's nothing more beautiful than having a hug with someone, whether it's
Mm.
male or female. Like, I mean, it's just that human connection. And as humans, we're built to have that connection, physically and emotionally. So,
Yeah.
um, and then it's also having the confidence and acknowledging where who we are as a person, be comfortable with that and be
Mm.
able to do that no matter what other people will say, judge, or what their opinion is. So you've got to be
Mm.
comfortable with doing that as well.
Is that part of when you talk about being a complete man and you're saying, self-love as well? It's going, this is who I am, and I will stand by that. And that's part of that
Mm.
courage because love involves a bit of courage.
Yep.
Is that, the case where you go, okay, I'm going to stand by this. I'm not worried about what you think. This is
Mm.
important for me. Is that part of that self-love as well?
Yeah, absolutely. It's finding that identity and being comfortable with that. I mean, that is huge for all humans to
Mm.
be to be comfortable with their own identity, and to the point where you could potentially lose friends and family over it too if you really take on the identity that you truly who you truly are compared to what they think you should be. And then bridging that gap somehow. But there's nothing. There's a few things that sort of like I'm passionate about, and definitely that breaks my heart. That seeing someone that's not living their life fully, but someone who's not living their life to who they actually truly are. I mean, that's extremely sad because like we're only here once.
Yeah.
So it's,
yes,
we don't get to the end to go, I'll give that another go. Or we might. I don't know, depending on what you believe. But I mean, it's we're here for one shot, and
if I'm here the second time, I don't remember anything from the first time, so I'm starting.
That's right. Again. Yeah, exactly right. Starting again. Yeah.
But isn't it? I mean, from that perspective for guys, because I heard the statement that the boy doesn't become a man until his father dies, and that happened for me. My dad, as much as he's alive, he died in metaphorically, and it was over a packet of chips. Where I was staying at his house. I was in between houses, and I was staying at his house, and I bought some Pringles because I like them, and my dad's pretty frugal. So he buys no-name stuff. And I'm sitting in the kitchen eating these Pringles, and he walked in and goes, "What'd you buy them for? They're expensive." And I didn't justify. I didn't have to. It wasn't get defensive or anything like that. I remember that quite well. I just said I like them, and he goes, "Yeah, but they're expensive." And I said, again, without justifying it, just said I like them, and it was kind of like I owned that. And he went, "Huh," and walked away, and it was. And our relationship changed from that point.
Wow, that's powerful, isn't it? Like it's acknowledging it and not justifying the reason why you did it. I mean, there's power in that. Without that comes back to, I guess, all the excuses and whatever else. I mean, it's I've learned along the way too that if you don't want to do something and you say no, you don't have to, as an example, you don't have to justify why I'm saying no. It's just like, I'm not doing it. Done. It's almost like drawing a line in the sand, and then from another person's perspective, usually they respect that. So in the case of your dad, obviously you respected that and had probably more respect than if you tried to justify why you bought them.
Yeah, exactly. And that changed that dynamic. And I'm wondering, and it just popped into my head as we're talking, because we mentioned Wayne Dyer before, he talked about that where, he said, people, not only do you have to justify it to other people, but you got to justify it to their satisfaction. And he talked about, he's walking down the beach, and people are, why are you walking to the beach? Because I want to. And well, how far you go? Well, I don't know, until I get tired of walking. And they say, well, what if you get all the way down there and you don't want to walk anymore? And he goes, I'll catch a taxi home.
But how easy though that is that? I mean, that's just taking the pressure off, justifying it, taking the pressure off you, because I'm just enjoying the walk on the beach, enjoying the moment. I mean, that's powerful.
Yeah. And is that what you're talking about? Because when you're talking about emotional intelligence, which is one of the modules you've got in there, is that where you're getting to with emotional intelligence? It's having that ability to recognize your emotions, but also know it's a combination of recognizing emotions, but knowing what's right for you as well.
Yeah, what's right for you, and also knowing that, and similar to, or not similar, we touched it on module 3, look outside yourself. So basically it's everything you do, think energetically or do physically, has an effect on those around you. So emotional intelligence is all around, having that awareness of other people, having that awareness of, if I say something negative or positively, it's going to have a big impact on whoever I'm saying it to.
Yeah.
So it's being aware of that as well. And, it's like the saying or the analogy where, you drop the pebble into the pond and you see all the ripples go out to the edge. It's exactly that, but it's also taking it further that, if you're in a relationship, or whether it's a friend, lover, or work colleague, it's having that emotional intelligence enough to know that there's something wrong or there's something right with the other person, and then being curious to find out what's happening for them if they, if they're in whichever state they're in.
Because what you're talking about there is having an awareness of what's going on for other people, and part of that, connecting that back to the emotions, is an awareness within yourself. Because if you're one aware, paying attention to and not putting filters up to what's going on for them, and then you are aware of your own reaction, your body is reacting to that. It's not just we're not listening just with our ears, we listen with our whole body. And so, and is that what you're talking about? Being able to go, okay, my partner, or it can be, I do it in business where I'm going, okay, this person's a little bit uncomfortable. How do I need to adjust this to communicate with them? Is that, what you're talking about with emotional intelligence?
Yeah, that's part of it, definitely. I guess in some of our family circles or whatever, definitely can see when, if you have that awareness and have that emotional intelligence, if something's not quite right with someone, instead of just keep doing the same thing, whether it's a person talking or whatever, you can see in their body language if another person's saying something they're not agreeing with, or it's having a major trigger for them, or it's affecting them in a negative way. It's like having that intelligence enough to say, okay, hang on, enough's enough, and then start being curious and finding out what's happening for that person. I mean, it's it's in men, it's one of those I guess things that are lacking, and that's why we get this little, I guess, spiral down, especially in relationships when we're doing the same thing. I'm doing 1,000 things for this person, but on the other hand, they're on the other side going, well, they're not hitting my needs. So they're okay. So you can do all these things, but if they're not hitting their needs, well, then that's when the issues start, and that's when there's disconnection. So it's having the intelligence enough to say, okay, well, I might be doing 1,000 things, but it's obviously not meeting their needs. I need to take a step back, start asking good questions, and then finding out what they actually do need.
Yeah. And that, from that perspective, if you're looking at it from an intimate relationship perspective, because I look at that and go, well, being having that emotional intelligence, being aware of what's going on for the other person, the one question that it's the most ridiculous question, I think, in a relationship is saying to you, for a guy saying to the partner, do you want to have sex? It's like, you're going to get a no.
Yeah, that's right.
You're better off, and I've never, in a relationship, I've asked for sex once, and that was a different scenario. So I was at a pub, and I was like, or in the Cottesloe pub in Perth, and I walked up to this girl and thought, I'm going to just try this. And I did, and she said yes. And I was like, oh. So I stopped there because I got 100% success rate.
Excellent. Retired.
Yeah, exactly. But in a relationship, when you're looking at, if you have that awareness, and you can go, okay, as you're doing things together, and you're not just, you can get a sense of what the person's reacting, how they're reacting, and as you say, it starts in the kitchen. Sometimes it finishes in the kitchen if you go, know. But is that what that's the intimate part of the relationship. But again, is that part of how, when we're looking at practical examples of how you use this in everyday life? I mean, if you're in a relationship, if you're aware and you're emotionally intelligent, aware of your emotions, aware of their emotions, you can create that better bond.
Totally. You're aware of your own emotions, and you can really support the other and be aware of the other person's emotions as well. I mean, half the time with in my relationship with my wife, if she's having a bad day or whatever, and then feeling that, and I can sense a feeling frustration or whatever might be happening, is there's a couple of things can happen. I start asking better questions of what actually is happening for her or whatever, or just a simple hug. I mean, because that just breaks down, and releases all the negativity potentially. But I mean, that's one of the things. But I mean, it's really just being aware of their energy and their emotions, and not taking things personally. If there's some frustration coming at me, it's not nothing.
It's not you.
It's not me. So then it's like, okay, well, there's obviously something going on here. Unless I totally peter off or something for some reason. But it's but I mean, it's. There's usually, but even then,
if you're aware of that, you can go, okay, what happened there? How much of that comes down? You're going back to that self-love, and I understand why you've got that as module 1, because you come in using that as an example. your partner comes in there, you've done something stupid, and we're men, we do stupid stuff. I'll acknowledge that.
Absolutely.
And so she comes in, she's pissed off at you. But if you've got that self-love, is that where you can come from, that foundation of going, okay, I can listen to this without getting defensive?
Absolutely. Yeah. And we can easily fall into the victim mode, and it's all, like, why are you blaming me, et cetera, et cetera. And then part of the complete man, and some of the listeners might know about this. So there's above and below the line behavior. So it's like you've got this level. Below the line behavior is all around, poor me, victim, all the negativity, blaming, complaining. And then as soon as you step above that, it's all the releasing, and then taking full accountability for the actions. So it's like, so in that particular instance, it's not taking it on going, well, you're frustrated at me, so then I get frustrated back. And then that's a recipe for disaster. So
exactly. You're not getting sex tonight. That's where that's ending up.
Yeah, exactly right. So it's almost like not almost, it's taking that full responsibility, and then and being comfortable with who you are as a person, as obviously self-love, not taking it all on, and being able to be there for the other person when they actually need them. And if they're down this level and you're up here, just, bringing them up to your level. They may not be ready for it, but it's just starting to be there for support for them, instead of taking it personally and then just do the whole spiral thing down, blaming each other and whatever else that happens in relationships.
Because is that, from that perspective, when you're looking at that, you're going, okay, you said taking that blame, and if you're getting upset at the situation, taking it personally, as you said, all of a sudden you're shutting down ways of responding, rather than going, okay, you're upset. What is it that caused that? And having that inquisitive mind, and and then finding out what that is, and then finding a resolution. Is that where you're talking about? You're able to step up to that and see it from a different perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing too, we've got to be careful with stepping up is try not to fix it. So, I still do it. Men, we're
Mr. Fixers.
Yeah, it's ingrained to us, to try and fix something. It's like let me fix it.
I'm Bob the Builder.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I mean, so then it's like it's just being there, and a lot of the modules touch on this, is just asking good questions, being curious of what's happening, asking open and asking open-ended questions. So it's not like a yes/no answer. So it's just having that, stepping into that curiosity and finding out what's on for the other person, instead of you need this, you need to do that, trying to fix it, which is like, that always backfires, never works.
Yeah. And we bring it all together. So the last module is completeness. Do you want to give us a summary of that? How does it all come together?
Practice comes, obviously moving forward with practice, but it's with the last module, it is acknowledging all the different parts. The modules are part of a formula that runs through the complete man. That's love plus curiosity plus awareness equals certainty, clarity, and completeness. So it's like looking at all the modules, but it's also looking at the formula as well. And then, knowing that actually it's a step-by-step process. And then, bring it all complete. And then I finish off with a guided meditation to really I guess, unconsciously embed it, and then move forward with confidence, but also knowing that they've got the tools now to come back to if they need to.
How important is the meditation component of that because being aware of allowing that to seems to be meditation allows you to sink into your unconscious mind. How important is that to do that?
Well, me personally, I think it's very important, because it takes away from a task level, I must do this. So then you tick it off, it's done, and move on. I mean, it's taking it at a deeper level. So even though when we sleep, unconscious mind still is processing it, and energetically it's still there. So it's definitely taking it to the next level, and just, I've done module 1, tick. I've done the Complete Man program, tick. It's looking out into the future as well. So, the way I do the guided meditation is, like, take yourself out 1 year from now, still taking all those learnings.
Yeah.
So it's like it's embedding it and anchoring it in at an unconscious level, than just doing another program that's done.
Yeah. And that's part of that integration. I think I mentioned earlier, because I used to read a lot of books and not really integrate anything.
Yeah. We've all been there.
Yeah.
Totally.
Got this big bookshelf of stuff that it looks impressive, but not doing anything. But is that part of that process? Because again, I love that you've got this very focused and a flowing, logical step by step. As you say, you have to do the first step before the next step, because it builds on itself. I love how that's come together in a workable unit that actually can be integrated if it's followed. How would someone, to make those steps? I mean, obviously we've got the details in the show notes so people can reach out to you. What do they need to do to be ready for the course? If you're going to do a pre-study, so to speak, do you need to, what would be a good way to start?
Well, I do have actually a 5-day connection series coming up, which is free, and that's coming up in, I think, the 3rd of July. I think I'm starting that. Yeah. So that's going to be live calls each day, and then little tasks that men can do through those 5 days. So that's a good start. Yeah. Otherwise, it's and if people are interested in that, you can certainly email me or reach out. I think that the biggest thing is that for any man or any woman or anyone to change is to be at a space where and a time that they're ready to change. So it's no use giving someone a program and forcing them to do it, because they're not going to be potentially 100% committed to it. So it's my wife's got a saying: you're only ready when you're ready. So when you're ready, you're ready. If you're not, 3 months' time, it might be the time for you. So usually people know that they've at a place in their life where they might have hit rock bottom, or a place in their life where they've want to break through the next level of their life, no matter what level they're at. They know that they're ready to take on something and ready to make a positive change, whatever that is. And that's most people know when they're ready. Yeah, awesome. And so, from the Complete Man perspective, what would be the key takeaway, key wisdoms you'd like the audience to take away from this? Tap into your true values. What is true for you at this particular time in your life? Yeah, I love that. Paul, it's so wonderful having you on the show, sharing the Complete Man. It's an awesome program that you've got there, and helping men connect deeper with who they are to become more powerful, in sense, because you're getting in touch with those emotions which actually serve you when you understand how they work. Love the work you're doing. Thank you for taking time on the show. Awesome. Thanks so much for the chat. It's been a pleasure to be here again. So thank you again, Damien. It's been awesome.
Thank you for being part of the Share.Care community and helping people around the world prosper. You're creating a bigger pie for everyone to share. The more people contributing to the world being a better place, the better the world becomes, for others and for you.